Welcome to Save One Podcast, where we document real life stories of hope and encouragement with a raw, authentic, and unfiltered approach. Join us as we aim to be the beacon of light in the storm of life that gives hope and direction to those who are struggling to find their way in the storm. Hey everyone, thank y'all for joining. I got Molly Fox here this week. To give you an idea, we met, I guess, a couple months ago, started talking about some of the podcasts and stuff you were interested in coming on. And so today, what we're going to navigate and talk about, you recently went through a divorce. I've been through the divorce. So today's topic is going to be navigating life after divorce. We're probably going to double back at another time and talk about kind of the before divorce, some of the things that go wrong and all that. But today we wanted to talk a lot about the emotional side, the dating side, navigating single parenting now, stuff like that, and try to give some real advice to you guys that will help y'all if you're facing that situation. So no exact script of exactly what we're going to talk about. So we'll kind of go from there. But Molly, thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
And so I would like to start a little bit. So most anybody who listens does know my story. I went through a divorce right at a year and a half ago. I got the two children, 50-50 custody of them. My divorce was not a pleasant thing. Sent me down a dark, ugly road, and I've talked about that a lot, and we'll kind of hit that. But I want to hear a little bit about kind of your story, just a little bit as far as how long were you married, the divorce, what you want to say about that, and then we can kind of dive into some of those feelings, those emotions, and it's going to be interesting having female perspective and male perspective now, and kind of the two sides of that fence. So,
yeah. So, I was married for, I guess June would have been 12 years.
Okay.
This June would have been 12 years. Been together for about 18, 19 years. Had a child beforehand, and we were like, we don't have to get married. It'll be perfectly fine. But then we ended up, wanting to get married about a year later. I have two kids. We have two girls, a almost 13-year-old and a little one who just turned 6. And yeah, I filed first about maybe 2020, 2022, for divorce. And then, it was kind of back and forth and back and forth. And I guess finally after the third time's a charm, not really, but divorce isn't pleasant for anyone. But, I was doing a lot of self-growth. My dark place was before the divorce, really. Like the growth aspect of it for me during the marriage, I think maybe is what pulled us apart so much. Me growing and, because you fall in love with the person that you marry, and so when they change and grow, and if you're not growing and changing with them, it just, you kind of dig your feet in the sand, and it was like we were at odds, and it just, there's a lot more to it, but everybody's has their truth, and like you won't be able to take that from anybody. So he's a great dad, and we try to co-parent well, but I have full custody of the girls, but they see him, basically whenever they want. So it was not pleasant either. It was actually very unpleasant. It was extremely unpleasant.
Yeah.
I think a lot more nobody can understand unless you've been through it, but nobody realizes how much mental and emotional toll it can, that even physically affects you. But so
that's a good point. And as I was kind of thinking about some things, and we've been talking back and forth a good bit about all this stuff. One of the things I tell people all the time is I do not believe for 1 second anyone who says like, oh yeah, divorce was no problem. Like it was great.
Yeah.
Everybody's damaged. And I think, I love the movie Fireproof. If you haven't seen it, it's something I think everybody should watch. But in that, I love that one of the guys he talks about marriage and divorce being he takes a salt and pepper shaker and super glues it together. Well, there's no way to take those apart without damaging both pieces.
Yeah.
And that's true. And I think people overlook that a lot. I know I've talked to some couples, some individuals that have gone through divorce, and they were really surprised by how much it impacted them. Like, and I can kind of go off on a tangent if I wanted to about social media. And I am going to talk at some point today about the impact friends have on you and how they'll talk you into doing stuff you shouldn't. But whenever a lot of people start thinking about divorce, unfortunately, they have this idea that it's just like a high school breakup. Like,
Yeah.
oh, we'll just break up and this is going to be great. Grass is greener on the other side and I'm going to take off and all this. And then they find out, like, even a very amicable, if I say that right, divorce, it's still going to damage you a
100%.
lot. And so, kind of with that, I'd like to jump in and kind of ask you that, and I'll answer as well. What were some of those after it, like maybe the feelings, the emotions that you had to navigate that maybe you were surprised by? Just kind of what was that initial time period after the divorce? What'd that look like and feel like?
Um, well, it kind of relates to how you were saying, like the salt and pepper, like you
Mm-hmm.
super glued them together. I think it's more like you pour them, you mix them,
Yeah,
and it's impossible to separate
that's
separate
true.
them again. Like once they're together, like it's impossible to. It's always going to be there. Um, but I was throughout the whole thing. I was pretty. I was able to kind of keep my walls up a lot,
Mm-hmm.
and as long as I can get through this, I'll deal with all the emotions later. I've actually been way more emotional after my divorce than during it because it was kind of like when you have your kids and you got to be strong for them. It's like so they see you, you
Mm-hmm.
don't want them to see you upset, and so it's like um, I think a lot of grief. I've never been a good. I've never been good at grieving, but felt guilty,
Yeah.
um, terribly guilty. I felt you feel alone, because when you're going through it, everybody's situation is different, and so no, you've been through a divorce, whatever happened, but I'm sure you felt more alone than
Oh yeah.
you know
Oh yeah.
even people that would try to be there for you. I'd have friends that would try to talk to me, and like nothing they said, I was like, look, I don't need you to talk to me. I was like, I just need you to be be here, like just
Yeah.
sit with me, like so I don't physically feel alone. Um, and that still like today, sometimes even today, I'm like, text one of my friends and one of my best friends, and I'll just be like, I'm coming over to your house, just sit. Like, she's like,
Mm-hmm.
I'm not doing anything. I was like, great, awesome. I just have to get up and go,
Yeah.
because if not, it'll paralyze you
Yep.
almost. You kind of feel like hazy about it. It's like it all happened, and you're like, wait, what? It's over? You know, you know,
Yeah. So when I went through everything, which are we have talked about our situations in more
yeah,
depth. I do know both of ours, and I'm pretty transparent about mine. It was a blind side for me. I never expected it. Um, Reasonings behind it were difficult to handle, and so, but I did. I felt the guilt side. A lot of my guilt was that I failed my kids. I failed as a husband. I failed at all these things, and I've talked about that. Um, Shame was a lot of it too. Like I don't believe in divorce. I'm not a fan of divorce. Except for situations where there's really no fixing it. Um, and that's a gray area. Everybody's got different opinions on it, but um, for me, it was just something that like it was never an option. It was never an option. Like I never the day everything happened with my divorce, I was like, nope, I'm staying. I did 54 days of love dare, started therapy the next week. Um, I did everything I could to try to save it. So I had a lot of failure feelings. But then, like you said, it's just like I'd been with my ex-wife for 10 years. We were married 8. And so you go from every day, you have this routine.
Mm-hmm.
And then all of a sudden, it's just, what do you do? And the loneliness factor, I had that really bad. And I learned really quick. And luckily, I will say, luckily, I had the sense of me to not listen to everybody's advice. And so I'm real big, and I preach this all the time. Don't talk about anything you haven't gone through.
Mm-hmm.
If you've never been an addict, you cannot understand the life of an addict. If you've never been a police officer, firefighter, if you've never been through a divorce, if you've never been a doctor, you can't talk about what it's like to be a doctor. So I had a lot of people coming to
What I
me
would do.
that were, they've never been divorced, and they were like, trying to give advice, do this, do that. You shouldn't feel that. You shouldn't feel this. You should do this. And it's like, dude, some people is like, man, you've never even been married, much less divorced. And then some people, it's like, yeah, that's great. You've been married 20 something years. Like, you don't know what this feels like. So I quickly learned to listen only to the people who had been through it. And that's who I would call and have some conversations. And anybody who's been through it, they'll be real with you. And it sucks. You kind of got to sit in it.
Yeah.
That really is the key with any trauma. And that's the thing. It is trauma. Don't care what kind of divorce you went through. It is trauma. It will affect you. Just unfortunately, not everybody's willing to admit that.
Yeah.
A lot of people there, and what I see, because I do get to talk to a lot of people, their reaction is to just start suppressing everything and put on the false bravado that, Jesus, hashtag living my best life.
Yeah.
The truth is, no, they're not. Like, they're hurting. But wonderful social media, we can put these little glimpses on there, 1 second, 2 seconds out of the day, but it impacts everybody. Mm-hmm. So what were some of the things that you intentionally started doing to kind of navigate some of that stuff?
Well, I had started therapy, a couple years, 3 years or 4 years ago. Really being prevalent, like talking to God. Like that was our church was really small, and everybody, it's like an older church.
Uh-huh.
With lots of old folks. I love old people. But and so everybody knows everybody's business, like, and it was kind of it was hard at first, to go, because everyone would, people would make comments, be like, "Oh, I haven't seen so and so in a while." Like, yeah, well, what's going on, so I'm not sure why you're asking, and I kind of just got to that point, so, but I actually struggled with that too, for a little while, right when we first filed, because, nobody wants, it's a sin, but every sin's the same. So
Yeah.
in God's eyes, it's just, I did that. And a lot of my friends, I tried to stay busy, but a lot of it, because I was really good at suppressing it.
Yeah.
I was great at suppressing it. Like, you would never know
Wow.
how much pain, I can be in like a ton of pain, but I don't know, a lot of trauma for sure. That's from that. But yeah, my family helped out a whole lot. I had kind of cut ties with like all my friends. Like, I hadn't really spoken to my best friend probably in like 10 years, other than like, hey, how are you? We just, kind of cut that friendship off. And I got back in touch with her, and we had like a really emotional, like deep heart to heart. And she was like, I never, I knew it was never going to work,
Yeah.
But she always told me that, and it was kind of like, every situation's different, but it was really difficult as far as knowing what to do that was going to help me personally, because you would go home and then you would grab I would get a glass of wine, and I'd be like, oh, I just need to relax. Like, I just need to calm down. And I'm like, what am I doing? Like, I can't be drinking, you know, like, and then,
Mhm.
um, it kind of, I got a little bit stressed out at work too. So I kind of took a lesser position. It was supposed to be less position, but it actually ended up being more high stress. Um, took a huge pay cut in that area, um, to hopefully deal with some of that stress, but nothing really you can do will work. You have to like sit through it. You have to just like
Mhm.
sit through the pain, you know?
Well, and that's something that I try to tell people now is everyone's different, everyone's situation is different, but also how you handle it, however you handle it, that's how you have the right to handle it your way.
Right.
There's no exact playbook. And that's something that until I went through it, I mean, I had a whole. It's kind of funny. I had a whole different idea. Everybody that's ever been married has that thought of like, man, if my spouse ever left, if I got a divorce, if my spouse cheated, all these different things of what you would do. Well, I didn't do a single one of the
That
things
you said.
that I said I would do. My reaction was completely different. Which it was also that was the catalyst in my life for a lot of other things where it just kind of everything blew up. I spent my whole adult life suppressing everything, not talking about anything, and then when this happened, like there was no holding it in. It was like a fire hydrant. It was coming out, and but looking back, I give myself a lot of grace because I did not navigate it well at times, but I did the best I could, and now I was having I I I started having panic attacks. I couldn't sleep. That led to the drinking. Um, had a lot of anger, a lot of hurt in me. That led to getting drunk at some of the bars and getting in fights just for the fun of it. Just to feel something for a moment. That's not a healthy way to navigate it. I will tell you that. And so I try to help guys even right now that are going through it to not go that way. I did jump into therapy immediately, um, and it was kind of funny. I talk about this. Daniel and I have talked about it a lot. Our producer, he's chimed in on some conversations. Is I started therapy, and I thought every moment of therapy was going to be about the divorce and about my ex-wife and all this stuff. And it was like there was like a few,
Mm-hmm.
and then it was like all about Jeremy and just so I started this deep dive, which then led into like now is I just want to know absolutely as much as I can about myself.
Right.
And then I also started studying and reading and understanding like the psychology of just people and how trauma affects everybody and how different people are wired in different ways. And then of course biblically turn to that too. But the big thing like I like to tell people is however you're handling it, however you feel, if you're going through it, that's okay. Don't hurt other people is the main thing. And I recently really kind of finally came to the realization and understanding that I was not doing it consciously, but I was destroying myself in many ways so that I would not go destroy other people because that's what I really wanted to do. And so instead I just turned it all on myself. And that's not healthy either. Don't do that if you can keep from it, but also give yourself grace. Like you're going to stumble, like you're going to have your good days, you're going to have your bad days, and then I know what I hated was the roller coaster of
Yeah.
you'll go a week or two and you're like, "Oh man, I'm feeling good. I'm positive. Man, my prayer life's great. I feel like God's doing something in my life." And then be riding down the freaking interstate and it's like a Mack truck hits you.
Yeah.
And then it's just back down into the crap for a day, a week, 2 weeks, whatever it is. So that's we all go through it. But however you handle it is okay.
Yeah. That
So
that made like that made me emotional. I have so much I want to say to that. Um, that gives me like so much hope
yeah.
for not really for me. Well, I mean, of course for me, but I guess on the man side of it,
Yeah.
that you were able to realize that. Um, I want that for everybody,
Yeah.
but it's the trauma that you talk about. It's about, I guess, after I had my youngest, his family, um, his dad actually, got in touch with my family and was like, "Hey, um, I'm worried about Molly. Like, she just seems to be in a really dark place. She's withdrawn, just I was just in a really bad place, and I guess for years, I had been saying like I'm not happy,
Hmm.
like I'm not okay, like this, and it took like basically they had like an intervention. I mean, that's technically I guess what it was, and um that's after that is when I started therapy, Um and I kind of felt like it was a breakthrough. Like I came up for like a breath of air, and then I started therapy, and I'd come home and I'd be learning all these things. You think it's going to be about the
Yeah.
marriage and why you're unhappy, and it's just like, well, no, there are reasons that you feel the way you feel and act the way you do, and we are the only thing that we're in control of is the way we respond and the way we react.
Yeah.
I can, and that's something that's like the most important lesson I think I've learned, because how I would react and respond now versus 10 years ago, it's not even like remotely the same person.
Yeah.
Um, and because I had lost myself, and when you go back and try to refine yourself and you come to your partner and you're like, I learned all these things, like I feel so much better about myself, and you want them to come with you. You're like, come with me on like come with me finding myself. And they're like, if they've dug their feet in and just want it to stay the same, like I think that's where the big disconnect with me happened. Of course, there was a lot of other stuff that went on, but my oldest is old, or well, my oldest is at that age where she understands. She knows
Hmm.
what's going on. Sometimes she would just look at me and be like, "You're doing a good job," regardless of what you think. Um, you know, she would just like look at me and tell me that, like before we go to bed. She was just in the kitchen coming down for a snack, and all I could be, "Thank you," that means a lot. And then she'd go upstairs, and I'd like lose my mind. I'd be like, "Ah," but no, the trauma plays a big role in it, and you do continually learning stuff about me, and still working through like a lot of stuff that happened, that I have still haven't like forgiven myself about, and
Yeah.
constantly finding myself. And I think that if you're going to go on that journey, you have to have a partner that's willing to go with you. People say they want to work on themselves individually, like that's good and fine, but like I want to understand why you are the way you are. If you shut me out, how can I do that? How can I
Yeah.
appreciate you changing? I fell in love with this person. You're the person I married, but you're all of a sudden changing, and I can't understand why. I don't understand why. I don't like it. You know, you have to let the other person in. You have to let them basically go on the journey with you, and it's detrimental if you don't grow together. And so, um, that's where I had a big problem. I felt guilty, as far as like, well, maybe I should, which I've always done, well, maybe I should do whatever, people pleaser, codependency, all that fun stuff. But I'm sure you've learned a lot about that.
Yeah.
But and I have too. And I was excited when I did. I was like, I learned this thing, I was like reading all about it, and then it was like, you're going to meetings for that? It's just like you want somebody there who will cheer you on and encourage you, and that's what, you know, and that makes all the difference in the world.
Well, and I like what you said earlier. I think it's good advice, and I want to hit it again for people because like I had family members and friends would tell me like, "Man, we don't know what to do for you. Like, we don't know what you need." And at the time, all I could say was, "I don't know what I need." They were scared for me, for some of the stuff I was doing the way I was destroying myself and all that. And the truth is, and I've talked about this before, it's in a book I'm writing as well, is like when people are going through stuff, 9 times out of 10, they don't need you to give
No.
advice. They need you. I love what Simon Sinek says. A good friend will come sit in the shit with you until you're ready to get out of it, until you can. And so, like, that's what I'll be honest. And if somebody's listening to this and you did this, don't take offense to it. But I could not stand when people would text me over the last couple of years, things I've gone through, and be like, "Hey, man, how you doing?" Well, I could say I'm good through a text message, and they're like, "Great, been praying for you." Well, then I wouldn't hear nothing else from them, and it's like, little did they know, I had to close one eye to be able to write that text. I was so drunk, like I couldn't function, and so, but nobody ever came and knocked on my door. Nobody ever came to my apartment. Nobody ever just came and said,
Hmm.
"Hey, I'm coming to pick you up. We're going to get something to eat." Like I would get these little one-off
Yep.
texts, and so like what I try to do now, and it's I do believe everything I've gone through is God teaching me a whole lot of things so that I can do all the things I'm doing now, helping other people. Again, you can't help somebody with something you haven't already gone through. So like now I was that person years ago that would do the same thing. Yeah, I'd send people a text. Hey man, praying for you. Hope you're doing better. Well, now I go get with them. Like if I know you're struggling, and some people try to play it off and say, "Well, man, I didn't realize it was that bad," and that can be
Because you never took
a
the time.
number of things, not just divorce. But it's like, man, it don't it don't take a very knowledgeable person. I mean, everybody knows there's certain life events are really hard on people. And so I go and I just try to be there with them. If they want to talk, great. I will talk. I'm never going to tell you what to do. Unless you absolutely look at me and say like, "Hey, how do you think I should navigate this?" And I'm going to preface it with we are all everybody because of our past, each individual is going to handle different situations differently. If I were in your shoes, I would do this. But I'm not going to come through the door and be like, "So this is what happened to you. This is what you need to do." Like there's nothing makes me want to punch somebody in the face more than when they would say that to me. I might have threatened to punch a few people in the face that did say that to me. Because I did. I had the ignorant people that came to me and they're like, "Hey man, your wife left you. She don't want you. It's been 2 months. Like, get your
Get
shit
over it.
together."
Yeah.
And I did. My wife left the day I graduated the police academy, and the next day I had to show up at work as a police officer. And so I had all that stress and all that. And I did. I had an idiot that I worked with that was in charge in my command structure came to me and straight up told me, "Get over it. You either be here at work or go fight for your wife, but pick one or the other. You can't do both." And it was like, dude, that is the most ignorant, horrible advice I've ever heard somebody
Yeah.
give somebody. And so if your friend or a family member is going through it, don't make it complicated. Just go be with them. Like, go pick up a pizza, go sit at the house with them and watch a movie. Like you said, your friend says, "I'm not doing anything." Great. That's what
Perfect.
I want to do.
Yeah.
Like, I did not want to go out. I didn't want to be in crowds. I didn't want to be all bubbly and all that. Like, no, like, but I did many times. I was like, man, I just wish somebody was here sitting with me.
Yeah.
Like, not even saying anything, but there's a lot of studies, statistics I'm not getting into on just the presence of another individual in the room with you totally will change what you're feeling.
Absolutely.
And then it escalates and I mean, physical touch, the dopamine and stuff like that that happens just from giving somebody a hug. And so the most basic thing you can do for people who are going through, whether it's divorce, whether it's loss of a loved one or anything like that, the best things you can do is just be there.
Be present.
Yeah. And like I thought about that yesterday. My mom, um, her mother, my grandmother, passed away last week, and I thought it was really cool yesterday that a couple of her friends just were like, "Hey, we want to come take you to dinner. We just want to take you to dinner, be with you. We know you've had a rough week." And it's like that's
Those are the kind of
that's
friends.
yeah, like that's how you're supposed to do
Mhm.
that. Like, no offense, but screw your little text messages.
Right. I mean,
Like that is
it
the
holds.
most empty 3 seconds you can ever give somebody.
I I agree. Yeah. That gives the statement actions speak louder than
Yeah.
words. Like I don't listen to anything you say. I watch what you do. You
Yep.
know. I do. The words hurt. You know, words are nice, but when
Yeah.
it kind of hits you different when there's no follow through.
Oh yeah.
Um, or you know, but that's funny. My we always make fun of my papa. It's very special to me. His big he likes to tell people what to do. He's like, now what you need to do is that's his saying, and then you're about to get like a lesson, a lifelong lesson. He had a lot of those for me through the divorce, and I kept having to remind him, Papa, like you've never been through a divorce, you
Yeah.
know. Well, I know, but what you need to do, okay, it's hard to it's hard for people to understand who haven't been there because they think like you said they think that this is what they would do when in all honesty like you have absolutely no idea what's going through your mind, what you're thinking, what you would do if you even would have the ability to do it, during a divorce, or during any type of traumatic event in your life that you would say that you haven't been through. um, I think a lot of the stigma of people your friends telling you what to, I think that's a lot of plays on a lot of insecurity on them. You either go get your wife or go to
Mm-hmm.
work. The hardest thing for me to kind of let other people, like, life still goes on. Like I may be sitting in this right now, but tomorrow I got to get up, I got to
Mm-hmm.
make these lunches, like I have to, fix hair and pick clothes out. Like life still goes on, and then I have to go to work, and I have to talk to, like, I'm as a dental hygienist, so I'm constantly talking to other people, and it's like you have to turn it off. It's a switch. Like you got to turn it off,
Yeah.
because you can't. The world does not stop. Like your world stops, but everybody else's keeps moving, and you still got to keep up with that. So that was a hard aspect of it, but
And that's
I
the thing, like when I say that a while ago about the whole, sending the text message, this is kind of a rule that I use now that I was on that side of it is if I have the thought that I need to send somebody a text that says, "Hey, I'm praying for you. Hey, I'm thinking about you. Hey, I hope you're doing well." I've already established that they're going through something. So I need to do more than just send a message. I need to do something for them, take something off their plate,
yeah.
ask, "How can I help you at least?" So,
I'd rather mail you I'd rather
yeah,
you mail me a card than send me a text message.
like
Like,
if you have the thought that, man, I ought to call this person, I ought to text them, I ought to send them a card, something, there's no question that they're going through something. If you realize that you need to do that, they're navigating something that they could probably use some good support around. And so that to me is really important. I did have a few really awesome friends. Thank God for my family because I battled some bad depression. Like I did. I struggled to want to see the next day. There for a while. And so between family, friends, I don't know what I'd have done without my parents.
yeah.
Like that's the biggest. I don't know what I would have done without my parents. And then you talk about guilt and shame is as I was navigating through a lot of it, I started having a lot of guilt then because now I'm a burden on people.
Mhm.
they're asking me what you need and I can't answer the question, or they're having to help me with stuff. So now I'm more of a burden. And so that's kind of another emotion. Um, with your daughters, they're at a different age than mine. I have a 6-year-old, or I'm sorry, as of a couple weeks ago now, a 7-year-old son, and my daughter's about to be 3. At the time my wife left, Tristan was 4. Brecken was had just turned a year old. Um, yeah, she was 15 months old when she left, and so that's been something I wanted to talk about. Like navigating their little minds has been is one of the worst sides of it, and like that's what kids are resilient. Kids will bounce back, and they will grow along with it. But it is really hard on kids, really hard on kids.
Mm-hmm.
And especially when they're so young, like I'm navigating that a lot with my 7-year-old, is he'll ask questions now. And it's like, talk about how there's not a playbook to navigate that. It's really hard. So what's been your experience with that?
Um, well, especially I guess during it all, we were separated, and she didn't my youngest didn't understand. Well, how come when you're here, you don't stay? When Daddy's here, um, and it's just we're working on. We're going through some stuff, working on some stuff. It got harder, I guess, towards the end when she kept, it's hard when they're being told it's all mommy's fault. She wants
Mm-hmm.
this. Like, I don't want this. Mommy wants a divorce. Mommy did that, I think a lot of it, like, them being put in the middle is like the most heartbreaking, like vulnerable state I have ever like felt myself in.
Yep.
When she's like, well, are y'all divorced now? So y'all don't like each other because y'all are divorced now. That's not what that means. Well, you
Mm-hmm.
don't want to live with them anymore. Am I going to get a new daddy? Stuff like that. And it's just like, no, no, slow down.
Yep.
No, your daddy will always be your daddy. He loves you I was like, we love you no matter what. Like, mommy, I was like, I love you just as much more, than I did. I was like, nothing will ever change that. But it's hard because they're so honest. So, in I have nephews too. I have 2 sets of nephews, like one on his side and
Mm-hmm.
My sister's kids. And my youngest spends a lot of time with them after school because they go to the same school. And so she would just talk about, well, they're divorced. So, they would ask, well, where's uncle, and they would be kind of like, what's that? Like, so they didn't even know. And so it's like and my sister was just kind of like, we haven't really talked about that yet, so it's not just your kids. Like, it's other people's, it changes everything, it affects it. And then they don't understand. And it's hard, but my oldest, she kind of knew, but for the youngest, she's still, she's still to this day, mommy, I wish we could do it together as a family, and that just
Yep.
like break, just kind of kills your soul a little bit.
Yeah, Tristan's done that multiple times, has made the comments like, well, I wish mama could be here. I wish we could all do it together. And
Mm-hmm.
then one of the biggest ones he hit me with one day going down the road, he just out of the blue, he's like, Daddy, I wish God would make you and mama like
Yep.
each other again
Yep.
so that we could all live together.
Heard that
And
one.
I was like, trying to drive down the road without bawling my eyes out. I was
Mm-hmm.
just like, well, God loves us both. We both love you, all that. But, and like, I hadn't really thought about all the other little kids
Mm-hmm.
until you said that. So Tristan just turned 7 this in April, and so I had him a big birthday party, water slide. All the kids from his school came, and I had multiple little kids coming up to me, "You're Tristan's daddy?" And I was like, "Yeah." And they were like, looking around like, "Where's Tristan's mama?"
Yeah.
Or they asked him a few times,
Mhm.
like, "Tristan, why is your mama not here?" And I could just see it all over him.
Yeah.
Like he would kind of like, look sad for a minute. He'd be like, "My mom and daddy, they don't live together. Or I don't think he really uses or understands the word
Mhm.
divorced." But he would just tell him like, "I'll have another party with my mama. My mama can't be here." And stuff. And I was just like, man, that sucks. Like, I hate that for him. And like I said, the other little kids, they don't understand. And so that's that's been really hard. Now, the one thing I got advice from some other guys that have been through it. I mean, my main thing is every time he brings it up is I tell him, "Look, dude, I always will love your mother. I always will be here for you and Brecken. Your mother loves y'all dearly. Like, it's all positive stuff. It's all
Right.
love and all that." But man, you talk about that like trigger that 18-wheeler coming down the road that'll hit you out
Yeah.
of nowhere. Like, it's those are some of the hardest
Knock the
things.
breath out of you.
Yeah,
Type
those are some
type
of the
stuff.
hardest things that I navigate. Brecken, like I said, she was a baby. Um, Actually, the month she turned 1 is when I went to the police academy. I was gone for 3 months. I came back to finding out I was getting a divorce
Yeah.
and all that. So she was so little, she didn't know, and so like she still don't know. But I do hate it. So impactful on them. Especially, I mean, back and forth. Um, I know like you have full custody. I have 50-50 custody. So every Wednesday there's somewhere different.
Mhm.
We're just back and forth, and that's where a lot of it. That's where I do encourage people as much as you can do fight for it. Get help. Try if you got kids in it, just know like it's gonna affect them. I don't care what you say.
Yeah.
It's gonna affect them. And so that's where, like I said, there are cases where divorce is right, but I wish people would put more thought into it
Mhm.
than what some do. I'll say that. Um, so so we got about 20 minutes left. I'm curious. We'll kind of lighten it up a little bit because I know this is probably going to be interesting. Dating after divorce. Now you're single, trying to date, trying to meet people, trying to discover yourself, all these things. What's that been like?
Um It's been interesting.
Don't call out names of people
I
that
would
have been in your
never, never.
DMs and stuff, but
I will say, the only reason that I would open something that is in my DMs is because I accidentally tapped on it at the right second when you sent it. Like,
yeah.
because you have to open it. If you tap on it, it goes straight to it, even if it's a message, I guess, in Facebook.
Yeah.
I don't open 98%. If you're in my DMs, you're I can guarantee you're in other girls' DMs. Like, I'm not about that.
Yeah.
Um, I may be like high maintenance, but like I don't want you in other girls' DMs. Like, I want you obsessed with me, and that's weird, but not really. I had tried. I was seeing someone exclusively. I guess we weren't official. I don't. I
Yeah.
don't know. I don't know how that works. Like, I'm so awkward.
I don't know
I'm
the
so
terms
weird.
anymore. It's all different
Yeah.
than when I was in my 20s. I'll say
Well,
that.
I was very like still people, hitting me up and like, sorry, I'm kind of seeing somebody right now. I'm just
Yeah.
not interested. I'm not, I did that for a while, and it started out great, and then it's like they're excited. It seems like they're excited for the chase. It's like, oh, it's
Yeah.
new, it's exciting, it's fun, and then like the high wears off, and it's like we kind of talked about this, like if it's almost like if you haven't been married, you don't understand like the day-to-day mundanity that a relationship that is going to last for the rest of your life
Yeah.
actually has. it's boring. Like it's not you don't always go and do this. Is we were talking about this the other day. I specifically, when I first start hanging out with somebody, they're like, do you want to go do this? And I'm like, actually, I just kind of rather hang out. Like,
Yeah.
I do that on purpose. I don't want to go to a concert with you on our first date. I don't want to go out on the boat. I don't want to go to a nice fancy restaurant. And like, I want to kind of do nothing with you, like ride around, listen to me, like talk, because that's how it is. Like, it's going to be like, obviously you're responsible. You have to keep it like light. You have to keep it, um, fun. But I just feel like there's a lot of people out there right now just searching for something they're never going to find because they're looking for it in other people when it's within them.
Yeah.
You got to be okay with being alone and not having that high, and the dopamine that you get. It's all exciting and it's fun and it's fresh and it's new, and then it's like, this is is this all it's gonna?
Mm-hmm.
It's like I need that. They need that. I don't know. That's been my experience from it. So I am not currently seeing anybody because I've decided that if I do if I do see somebody, I'm just, until I'm exclusive, you want to take me out? Yeah, I'll go on a date. Sure, let's go. I'm just not like super excited to like jump back in, like, kind of like dipping my toes in, not ready to.
I think that's a good place to be. One of the things that I'll warn people, if you haven't been through a divorce yet, and there again, I go back to did the best I could. I mean, everybody's different and all that, but if you're in your 30s and you've never been married, there's a reason you've never been married and you're in your 30s. I will say that. If you're divorced, you got trauma, you got baggage, you got triggers, you got a lot of stuff going on. And so it's really hard. Everybody sucks, including myself.
I suck too.
Everybody's difficult because you don't come out of it unscathed. And then you throw in kids, then you throw in work, then you throw in the schedules and all that stuff.
What time does that leave?
It's really hard to navigate. And like you said, because of that, I want to find out real quick what I think about you. And I'll admit, like, man, when I came out of my divorce, because there might be some girls that are wanting to cuss me out, is yeah, I was so broken. I was such a broken individual. And situations around my divorce, I was looking for a lot of validation. I was trying to find confidence and validation in people liking me and going out with them and all that. And that's something that like is so common after divorce, and understandably.
After trauma.
Yeah, after trauma, but especially, I mean, if you get a divorce, if the person that you loved more than anybody in the world just broke your heart, and you're dealing with all that, you start looking for stuff in the wrong places, kind of deal.
Yeah.
And so I dove right into, well, I'm gonna move on. And I had a lot of people in my ear like, man, you just need to find somebody else, move on, and you're gonna feel better. And that was some horrible advice, because what actually ended up helping me the most was when I started really wanting to learn about myself the most. And with that, I learned what I needed, because like I know and recognize things about myself now that I had no clue about a couple years ago, or even a few months ago, in some ways. And so as I dive into that more, understanding myself, now I'm able to start looking and instantly knowing like, hey, I don't know, that person would not give me what I need and all this stuff.
That's so funny you say that. I the person I was seeing before all this, like, I would have never been able to say like, I'm not okay with that. Like, I need more. I deserve more. I want more. This is not it. And once you find that, you learn about yourself and you get to know yourself, and I'm still finding out who I am, like who I truly am. It's it's a growing thing, you know, and I can pretty much tell you probably within 10 minutes of talking to a person whether or not
Yeah.
you're it for, like, whether or not I would go, you know, give it a chance, just
Yep.
because you can. It's like it's an you know, it's a vibe.
Yeah.
It's just, I guess, if that makes sense. But you know, you can, like, that's not what I need. That's not what I want. You know, pretty quick off the bat.
Mhm.
And so now, like, that you've learned that about you, you're probably a lot more picky.
I am. I
Very
am.
picky.
And then also, I mean, so one of the biggest things, and if you've gone through a divorce, if you've gone through any trauma in your life, trauma bonds.
Mm-hmm.
Trauma bonds are horrible.
Yeah.
I've been down that road. And the funny thing is, like, I say the funny thing is, every girl that I've gone on a date with or even seen for a month or two at a time or anything like that since my divorce, I have nothing bad to say about them. Yeah, I mean, they'd been through a lot.
Mm-hmm.
So they had their things.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't talk trash about them
Oh,
because we
yeah.
didn't work out. Unfortunately, some of them talk trash about me, which is fine. But it's like, I look at them and realize, like, man, you just came out of a very abusive marriage. You have trauma. I have
Yeah.
trauma. And so, yes, we had like this little initial trauma bond. And so that's something I tell people who talk to me that are like, hey, I just got divorced. I really want to jump into dating. And I'm like, well, first off, there's a lot to talk about. Like,
Yeah.
if you just got a divorce and you're just wanting to jump out there, my first question is going to be a lot about your marriage and how you actually felt about your
Yeah.
spouse.
Yeah.
If you're just that eager, or are you trying to run from your feelings
Mm-hmm.
and you're trying to cover them up with other relationships? And that's the thing after divorce, either through other relationships, drinking, partying, all kind of different things can be those cover ups.
Yeah.
And so I try to warn people about that, but the trauma bond, and like, I have to watch out for that. I talk about it a lot too, because of some of the stuff I do in law enforcement fire community with peer support, um, where I'm part of a group that we respond after critical incidences, and we'll have group session, we'll have one-on-one and all that. I'm huge on, I will not sit down and talk to a female one-on-one. And those situations, I won't allow anybody else to be male, female talking about a situation. If it's a peer support situation, I'm going to have a female with a female, a male
Yeah.
with a male, because if you're not willing to recognize trauma bonding and how quickly it'll happen
Mm-hmm.
and the detrimental side of it, um, go play with fire. You'll
Right.
figure out how bad it is.
I'm super cautious when it comes to that. I won't open up right away. Like, I won't talk about the trauma. But I agree. I mean, if you have something bad to say about somebody that you've seen, it's usually a you problem.
Yeah.
You know, he's a great guy. Like, we're still friends. Like,
Yeah.
you know, just it's we all gotta find out within ourselves what's gonna work for us. So,
Exactly.
but trauma bonds. Yep, that's a
Mm-hmm.
whole nother topic there.
And I like what you said. We had this conversation the other day, you and I did, about how, like, I laugh. When I was married, my ex-wife, she would watch that show, The Bachelor,
Yeah,
and
we
so
did know it. Yeah.
I would see, I would sometimes she'd be watching it, and I would always make fun of this, and I would always bring this up back then, is, these people are, it's not reality,
No.
and they're going on dates in the Bahamas and all this crap. So I mean, scale that back to around here, like, any female out there, I'm not taking you to Kate on a first date. Like, I'm not that guy. Like, I want to see who you really are.
Right.
I'm not gonna get a horse-drawn carriage and us go through
Yeah.
Madison, Mississippi Square or
Yeah.
whatever. We're not going on a vacation the second week I know you. None of that, because that is like maybe what 3 to 5% of
Yeah.
a normal
Yep.
marriage. Normal marriage is, hey, we're gonna grab Sonic and watch a movie at
Yeah.
home, or we're
Hey, take me fishing. Take
yeah,
me hunting. Like, I want to go
exactly.
hunting. You know, like, I'm a bit so.
I like to try to
Mhm.
be real about it.
Yeah.
Because you can fake a lot.
Yeah.
And then,
All glamorous.
like, I'm reading a book right now. Jay Shetty. I talk about him on other podcasts and all that. Really awesome dude. But he has a book called The 8 Laws of Love. And so, like, one of the things he talks about, and there's been a lot of scientific studies on it, is like, for instance, if you go watch a romantic movie and then meet somebody right after you watch that movie, your mind is like, it's programmed. Everything in your mind is all about romance at the moment. So you can meet somebody that you're going to immediately, you're going to have like this romantic view of them. Versus if you walk out of
Yeah.
watching an action movie,
hmm
it's going to be different. Or
Like, I'm gonna take over the world.
or if you go on a first
Yeah.
date and it is like horse-drawn carriages and this and that, or if you meet people at weddings, that's another thing that yesterday when I was
Really?
reading it, it talks about is our minds. People don't realize how our minds work the way they do. Is whatever environment you're in, your mind is essentially pre-programmed at that moment.
Oh yeah.
And so if you meet somebody at a wedding, it's this massive butterflies and romance and all this stuff versus if you meet them at the park,
Yeah, you're
something like
at a
that.
baseball tournament or something.
Yep. And so like I try to be real careful with that stuff. Um, but like my biggest thing, I give a lot of people grace, like
Mhm.
unbelievable amount of grace, and the reason is I need a
I was about
ton
to
of
say
it.
we don't give ourselves
Yeah.
enough.
I need a ton
We're our
of it.
own worst critics when it comes to that aspect of it. But grace is probably the best thing you can do for yourself or anybody else.
Yeah.
Just lots of grace.
I will say, see if you agree with this. I mean, the most important thing, I preach this all the time, therapy. Like you cannot, if you're going through a divorce or any traumatic event in your life, you need to, at least for a time period, go through therapy.
Yeah,
Um,
that was kind of that's what really, I guess, where everything came undone. I kind of had like an ultimatum. It was
mhm.
like either we do this or we don't, and whether it was, I don't know what it was, but like, wouldn't do it. So just kind of, it's like, all right, that's how important it is. Like, it's huge, huge because, people think it's all like oh, that's just fake and phony. And, it's not, it's like I said, you can't comment on it if you've never,
Mhm.
experienced it yourself. So absolutely therapy. And you can't just stop. You can't think, okay, well, I'm good. I learned this. It's like a continuing thing.
Yeah.
So
And I'll say with that, just so people are clear, like therapy is expensive.
yeah, it is.
It's very expensive. Um, you're gonna get something that you're not gonna get though talking to a friend or a family
Right.
member. If you can't afford to go to therapy, especially in the social media world we have, um, there are tons of divorce groups on social media. There's tons
A lot of
of
churches will provide
yep,
therapy. A lot of churches will. Um, especially like around here. Like I know Broadmoor does.
yeah,
Like just support groups too. Like there's something you can do. There's somewhere you can go that you're not gonna you won't, like you said, you won't get from listening to your best friend,
yeah,
filling your ear with, oh, you don't need that. You deserve better, and doesn't help. Like it puts a Band-Aid on it, but it doesn't fix the wound.
yeah.
So
And that's the thing, man. Just be careful the advice you
mhm.
follow. Be careful the advice you follow. I can't stress that enough. Um, I'm not gonna sit here and say some of them, but Lord have mercy, some of the advice I got. Keep in mind, I was at a police department at the
I
time,
was about to say that's
so
one thing I stay away from.
I there were a lot of cops had some ideas of how we could go get my mind off stuff. That it's a good thing we didn't go on those trips.
You know what some advice that I got was? Stay away from firemen, police, and linemen.
That's pretty consistent. I'm not gonna argue with it. I will say, and I've hit that topic quite a few times. I'll be honest, I'm pretty ashamed of those careers and the amount of infidelity.
There's
Um,
a lot.
it's and it is sad. I mean, on that note, I will say, I mean, I've read some studies where it's fire, police, EMS, and ER nurses
Yep.
and it's like 75% divorce rate.
Yeah.
And I talk obviously about a lot of it. Involved in some groups where we discuss a lot of it, teach some stuff about it. Is um, the trauma that those careers put on you? They cause a lot, um, and that's where like I'm fully transparent about, and I don't know how much she would admit it, but I was a fireman, I was a cop, my ex wife was an ER nurse, like zero communication. I
Yeah.
mean, like you have to know how to suppress a lot of stuff to navigate those careers, and that's the bad part, and then the infidelity part.
Yeah.
But yeah, so
That'll
that
do
also
it.
I think everybody gets that advice.
Yeah.
Stay away from cops and firemen. Um, and then all the guys, I tell them stay away from the ER nurses. So I get it. I get it. Like I said, it's unfortunate. It's something I'm trying to change. It's a stigma and a idea that I'm trying to really break because it's unfortunate. Um, I can say I'm one of the few. I've put my hand on a Bible. I've never cheated on somebody a day in my life. Unfortunately, I know dozens upon dozens of cops and firemen that cannot say the same thing.
Yeah.
And so it's something I wish would change. I really do. But so kind of end this. I know we might have some ideas around some other topics we're going to talk about on some at a different date. But any last thoughts, advice for somebody who is in this process, whether they've been in it for a year or their papers are about to be official? What advice? What advice would you give yourself,
Um,
knowing what you know now?
I would probably, um, no matter how much you think you've got it, there's going to come a point where you're going to break, you know. And so you gotta get a village. You have to have, like you said, your parents. Like I don't know what I would have done. Me and my mom haven't always like been the closest. We kind of had
Mm-hmm.
a rough go there, especially like growing up. We were always at odds. And I think I've gotten closer to her in like the past couple years than I thought humanly possible. So you have to let people in, you know,
Yeah,
regardless of how good you think you are, how much you don't need them. You got to let people in.
that's good. Yeah, and I'll answer my own question so that I have my side of it too. Is if I could go back and talk to myself in September a year and a half ago when my wife left, what I would say is give yourself grace.
Mm-hmm.
Give yourself grace and let people help you. Because I didn't know how to let people help me. But I beat myself up so bad that's the biggest thing is
Oh yeah, I made
if
myself sick over it.
yeah,
Just
I
being.
lost
Mm-hmm.
like Lord,
I lost a ton of weight.
I
Yep.
lost 26 pounds in 2 weeks, and then it became, I mean, it was
Mm-hmm.
extremely unhealthy the way I was treating myself with alcohol and other things, and I was destroying myself, um, essentially, and so grace, give yourself grace, and what's really neat is now that I've learned how to give myself grace and forgiveness, like I'm able to forgive and give grace to other
Yeah.
people in an unbelievable way that I never could. Because I understand it now. And so just give yourself grace, focus on yourself, understand that you're going through something. Like that
Yeah.
was that's the other thing I see people do is where like it's like they know they're going through something really bad, but it's like they're trying to deny it kind of
Mm-hmm.
deal. And I kind of did that. Um, and so just be gentle with yourself.
Yeah.
I would have never said this before. My therapist, it took him months to get me to finally do this. Love yourself. Love yourself. Talk nicely to yourself. Encourage yourself.
Positive affirmations
Yeah.
all day long.
Yeah.
Positive affirmations.
So I hope some of that helps some people. This is obviously a topic. This police and fire are my three things I care about so much. And so it will not be the last time I talk about it. Hopefully, it'll come back on. Maybe we can cover more of, because there's a lot of mistakes I made in my marriage. A
Yeah.
lot of mistakes I made that I try to tell guys now, man, don't do this.
What you would do differently.
Yeah. And so
Absolutely.
I think that might be good to talk about, and be open about it. If you're willing to, we could do that on a different episode. So,
For sure.
all right. Well, thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
Yep.
It was fun.
All right, Daniel. Thank you, brother.